What's going on, Twitch chat? Let me get some Pepe Jammers. What's going on, Turk, Believer, my man Mary, Never Cholt Games, and who was a first responder? Lewis is there. Lewis, hey. Lily Buzz, what's up? What's going on?
Squad.
It's me and Corn Dog right here. We're gonna be talking about our casting VODs today. We're gonna look back on matches from Blast games that we casted, and then talk about what was good, what was bad, some stuff that we think about that you don't get to hear about when you're like watching the game, and some of like the stressful things that we think about in the moment, like when we're talking. I think the point of this, and you can come in and correct me if this isn't true, but I think the point of this is to add a little bit of add a little bit of enrichment to viewing a cast when you listen to a game. Not just so that you understand the trials that we go through as casters, but so that you can kind of see when we're thinking, which I think is pretty interesting. Like if I or Connor listen to another cast, like Anders and Moses, for example, we'll not only be thinking about like, well, that was really good, but then think about, oh, I see what Moses was trying to do there with that handoff, or oh, that's some good intonation. I bet he felt good about that one, that kind of thing. And I feel like that's something you don't get unless you actually do casting yourself. So maybe that'll be interesting. Hopefully it'll be interesting. Was that pretty much the point, Connor?
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
you got it pretty spot on. I think it's gonna be a cool chance to show you guys like what little nerdy casting tidbits we actually geek out about. I think everybody just like assumes and knows the big ones, right? You want those like snacks in the Big Apple moments, but there's a lot more meticulous little details that get me all excited. So we get to touch on some of those today.
I'm going with so we're gonna bring in three clips each, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going with like a clip that's like a good clip, like a good reaction, and then I'm gonna talk about something that's like that's a bit more. It's not super technical, but something that's important where it comes to passing to your co-caster, and then something where I did something badly, and then Connor tried to fix it, basically, and go with that format. End on a negative. I think it's good to start on a positive. I don't think it's good to have a negative anywhere, but it's probably better to have one at the end if we're gonna have it.
Yeah, I think this is kind of funny. I mean, for the premise of the show, right? Like we decided not to tell each other what exactly we were bringing to the table. So we've each selected a different game. Mohan, the Bahrain Global Finals of 2019, and then I went with our very first cast at the most recent Blast event in London. So we take 3 clips, 3 moments, and I actually, again, like I didn't know what you were gonna do, but I kind of fell into the same thing. I've got a really, really good one where like we can both be proud, and then a little kind of like me, I see the weakness in something that maybe an average viewer might not have picked up on,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like a very clear kind of blunder. But I mean, it was a wild game, so it's excusable, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we ended up in the same place, dude.
Cool. We have I have oh yeah, before we get started, I want to we had this tweeted out. It's a picture of us casting a game, and there's a poll going on. So I'm curious if you guys know what this was. I didn't know where this was from, so I'd be surprised if a lot of people got this right. But hey, you got a 25% chance. If you had to take a guess, what do you think this moment is from? These like 4 photos. Which one of these games do you think it was from? How much of the spring series did you watch? I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the answer. Oh, wait, did I do that? I don't think I selected an answer. Did I do that? That's not true. This isn't Navi versus Astralis. It was Navi versus Vitality, which was a mental game. But I think I accidentally voted for the most picked. Did I pick? I don't even know if I picked or not. Okay, well, I think I accidentally voted for the most picked answer, which was not true, but it was Navi versus Vitality. I got this shirt from Zara. I think a lot of people wanted to know that. I was withholding that information for a bit because it's like sometimes you don't want people to know where you got your good got your good bargain from. It was just a wicked shirt. I got it while I was in Thailand, and I was just like in a Zara with my girlfriend, and I saw this shirt. Honestly, pretty expensive. Pretty expensive for just a button-up collared shirt. How much do you think the shirt cost?
I mean, I've shopped at Zara with you, so I'm gonna say.
How much would you pay for that shirt? Let's give it two answers. How much do you think the shirt cost? And then how much would you pay for it?
Okay, I'm gonna say I think it cost $90.
Okay, let's not get insane, man. It is Zara at the end.
It is Zara, right?
It is Zara, yeah. I did say it was expensive, but
I'd pay $50 for that shirt.
$50? Okay. It was $60, I think. It was $60.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little steep, but I had to have it. So I think it was a good shirt. And yeah.
I was gonna say I'll hit you with the contrast, dude. That Jack and Jones, Primal Beast sweater I'm also wearing at the same time.
Yeah.
How much do you think I paid for that?
Well,
I got it at Simon's in a bargain bin. Found it on sale.
I mean, I could have guessed that you're going to go for the frugal buy. You came away with a great. This is a thrift store type deal where you saw it. It was right. So I mean, if it's a bargain, I don't want to really take it down here, but I'm gonna say $18.
$10.
$10. You got this.
$10
and
sweater.
I'm not wearing a shirt that looks $50 more expensive than yours.
No,
which is the real tough part about fashion. That's the real tough part about fashion.
Yeah, you just gotta wait them out.
Sometimes you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you sometimes you can't get the look for a different amount of money. You just have to pay the price. That's how I predicate all the costs or all the prices on store.boxer.gg. But yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. I actually didn't know that. Okay. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into it? It's a little bit early for some people in North America. It's a little bit in the afternoon for some people in Europe. But I imagine a lot of people have very degenerate schedules right now.
Yeah, it's all in the air, man.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's a random amount of people that are awake at this time. And we're probably very few North Americans who are up and at it. So, okay. I guess, should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up a few clips here from Blast Bahrain. And there is, to start this off, there's going to be a clip where Connor casts is the end of the first half, and it's a very genuine reaction to a moment that hits well. So I think
I'm excited.
What's good about this is just it's funny. It flows out naturally, and I want you to pay attention to just how not premeditated this can be. Just I think that's part of the reason that it hits so well, and so that's why I want to bring this up. But this is Twist pulling off a crazy clutch versus Device.
For Device, a one-man army for Astralis in this 15th round. Bombs cut down, 40 seconds. Can he do it all? Twist to Nitro, shoulder to shoulder. No, not like this. He now knows information is his, but so's the bomb, Launders. He's ready. Twist. Oh, those are some big Canadian balls sitting as we all of a sudden have to find our...
Big Canadian balls, Connor.
Big Canadian balls.
Big Canadian balls. That was okay. There's another part of this actually that I thought was interesting. That's kind of packed in. It's like a twofer. So that moment's obviously really funny, and I think it's so nice, just how easily it comes out, and it's the last part of a half. So it felt like it really stuck in my mind. Here, you actually catch yourself at a moment where I think you messed up a sentence, and then you saved yourself with the pacing. So
Astralis in this 15th round. Bombs cut down, 40 seconds. Can he do it all? Twist to Nitro, shoulder to shoulder. No, not like this. He now knows information is his. But
so right there you go. He now knows information, which isn't a proper sentence, obviously. But then you say is his to catch up with that afterwards, and then move into the rest of it. And that's a technique that we use where sometimes you're going to say stuff that you instantly regret or doesn't make sense coming off the tongue, but you can fix it, and your ability to fix it is also what defines you and how good you are at casting. The entire for each sentence, you've got kind of this this period like a meter, like you would have in poetry, and you can fill that with a certain rhythm. And so if you jumble up a bunch of words and then don't focus on your meter, then you're not going to have like a proper rhythm. It's not going to be as nice to listen to. So sometimes you have to like inject pauses in order to keep a meter when a sentence doesn't fit properly into that meter. And that's kind of why you have that, like, what would be the word, like abjunct
Do it all.
pause.
Twist to Nitro, shoulder to shoulder. No, not like this. He now knows information is his, but so's the bomb, Launders. He's ready. Twist, twist. Oh, those are some big Canadian balls.
Yeah. So to go off what you're saying there, yeah, it's listening to it back now, right? It's like the way that I originally said information was as the end to one sentence, but then by pausing and making that kind of like that one abrupt moment, I then changed information from the end of the first statement to a possessive and the beginning of the next piece, which was information is his, so is the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've completely, I put the period after, erased the period, and then shifted it into the next statement. And yeah, that's a nice little moment you found there. But there's also, I'd say, a setup in that clip as well towards the end of it. If you were to go back, Mohan, and play it from when they come down rushing ramp, obviously this is one of those moments. And this is something that I wanted to touch on throughout this whole stream. So I think it's good to get it out of the way early. Is like it's about the segues and the handoffs and the chances to let you interject between me having a string of play-by-play. Like you said, like when my meter is at that 80%, it's still really important to include you and to allow you at least enough space to say what it is you need. If it's a moment where a round slows down and you're gonna put together an argument or some type of analysis, then you'll know when you can fit that. But if there's something that you can cram into just 3 words and interject with, then I still want you to have those moments. And I think that's why I name you. That's why I mention a lot of the times when I feel like a commentator says their partner's name, it's kind of like a red flag. It's like a potential handoff. And if you don't take it, then I'm going to shift right back into the play-by-play, which in this case I had to, because you see Twists obviously come running out. And like, that's the whole point of this play, is that it's super aggressive. It's kind of out of nowhere. And I have clips like that prepared for us later. So these kinds of, these like, I call them like crank dial moments, right? Where you've got your hand on it and you think you're slowly turning it, but then it just peaks. And that's what Twist did in this one. So if you play it one more time, listen for that one where it's like, not only do I take that potential stumble on my words, but then I also red flag you so that you can kind of help me, right? The information is his, just like the bomb, blah, blah, Launders. Like, I'm starting to fail in that moment, actually. But Twist saves me instead of you. You weren't needed to come in to interject with something that kind of kept the conversational flow. Twist just ends the half. And I think that makes this moment a little bit better, actually, because it kind of just, it puts it to rest when we really needed it to end.
Let's take a listen.
But Device doing more heavy lifting. He's going to all of a sudden put hell into question. Stewie trying to lock down ramp room first, but there it is. 3 kills for Device. A one-man army for Astralis in this 15th round. Bombs cut down, 40 seconds. Can he do it all? Twist to Nitro, shoulder to shoulder. No, not like this. He now knows information is his, but so's the bomb, Launders. He's ready. Twist. Oh, those are some big Canadian balls.
I have to play it like until after that every time.
Yeah.
But like right here where Device is on the ramp and then you kind of like mention me, obviously I know that I can jump in, but I have to also decide because we have to both react to the game. So I have to decide if there is going to be action right after that, or if it's suddenly Device or Twist is going to slow down, not run through that molly and make it a longer clutch situation. Because otherwise Connor will be like building hype, until forever. And then there won't be a moment and then everything falls flat. And instead I could hop in for just a few words and then he could come back in right after, super fresh, caught his breath, and then just end the clip strong. And all I have to do is maintain that energy for him. And it's interesting because you can visualize like right here. There's like three paths. You could take the slow peek that Device wants him to take. Probably not going to take that. Running through the molly is the third option that you never expect. And then the other option, and where Connor kind of calls on me, is where Twist could slow this down to the point the molly extinguishes, that the bomb goes down, and then it's suddenly a 30-second clutch as opposed to like a 3-second crazy meltdown situation. Okay, so let's do you want to why don't we kind of interlace and hop into one of your clips?
Yeah, sure, let's do it. That's cool.
You can go for it and just preface what we're gonna watch.
All right, yeah. So what I have again for the match is the MIBR versus Liquid Blast Premier London. So this is the very first game of Blast for us in this year, which means that to interlace here would to mean that there's also, I think, like 2.5 to 3 months time of downtime, no casting between us, right? So we would have actually watched the game that you just brought up during that time off. And we came into 2020. We had done DreamHack Leipzig kind of as like a warm up into Blast Premier. We had those 3 broadcast days the weekend before. Mm-hmm. And this first moment from me is the 30th round of the game, actually, because this was a double overtime with crazy rounds. Like we got one of the most exciting maps of the season, I'd say, right out of the gate. So it was Liquid's first map. It was MIBR's first map. There was so much kind of riding on this game in terms of like the beginning of the year type form. And so we go straight to round 30. All right. Like there's things we could talk about throughout the match, but what you need to realize just in terms of like the level of intensity and the level of hype is that the game was very spree based. At one point, Liquid were winning 6-1. Looked like MIBR had no chance. All of a sudden, MIBR, finish off the first half strong. They win pistol. They convert. They're leading 13-6. Liquid brings it back 13-13. MIBR then gets 2 rounds in a row. Finally, they've secured overtime. Liquid wins 1, and we find ourselves in round 30. So when I play this, we should be at the end of the
distance.
Wow, we were actually taking
29th.
Yet fallen. I mean,
yeah.
If he doesn't save this up, will they even be able to afford one? I mean, yeah, I
so
guess reasonably.
Mo, can you just mute
the
sound for the stream for the second, because we're going to catch up to the time.
Buy.
And what we missed here is that Elige has this crazy Desert Eagle clip at the beginning of the round. So we're just kind of talking through that. And when it hits 35, I'll pause it, because I think there's something to praise in the beginning of the round. And that's that we actually have some impromptu humor. Like even though we talk about how, the seriousness of the match is what we always want to focus on, and like the hype, and like it's not necessarily about us cracking jokes all the time. I think that it's cool because it's just impromptu out of nowhere. Like the replay from Elige's head when we see his Deagle clip, we laugh about that. And then the beginning of the round, there's an early kill. One of the Brazilians in the crowd yells something out. You play off of it. So there's just humor to set up the beginning of the round. And then we get into we get into these really good handoffs in the play-by-play halfway through. So I'm just going to play the 30th round and we'll listen to it.
To praise Fallen for his wallbang theatrics. Well, that's an Oscar.
Yeah,
for Elige.
Yeah, what a performance. And I don't think he was faking it. He's got more to show.
Let's see these acts of God.
This nasty. You love that. Fur's the one who takes so much damage that he gets boosted up, even though he's played there before, and that's just a great flick.
Some Deagle shots are just. Ooh, you see that?
See the cheats in his forehead?
Yeah, I saw it pulse.
He just activated the gun with his eyebrow.
Oh man, that's nuts.
So again, something that's kind of like, it's not prepared in any way. It's just given to us. Sometimes let that serve as a reminder. Like sometimes you just have to get distracted. Like you have to stop your conversation to mention something that has just happened on screen. Like production is showing that to us for a reason. They're trying to basically interject in the conversation without speaking to us, because we're the only 2 people speaking while the game goes on and while production tries to paint their picture. Like there's multiple voices, but only 2 are spoken voices, and that's me and you. So you know, I thought that was a cool way to just kind of giggle before the round starts.
It's kind of cool when you go into the like production truck. Some of the videos that showed up from the production truck were so well received on Reddit and Twitter, because I think people don't have insight into what goes on in that place. And it's crazy. There's there's like 3 guys doing replays, a tournament director controlling the whole operation. It really is like the ship. One guy's sailing, everyone's contributing to helping row this ship. Do you even row ships? They push these clips like a few seconds before in the production truck. They end up on our screen, and it's kind of an opportunity to improv on something. And especially if they see something funny, it gave them a visceral laugh, and then maybe it'll give us something to talk about. If not, we can glaze over it. And obviously if it's the right clip and the right thing kind of comes into our minds, and we have a funny moment like that.
Yeah. And again, I think it's important too that like, even though this is the 30th round, like, we have to always remember, like, this is when there are going to be the most amount of viewers. So it's a good time to kind of show character, I think. People like laughing as much as they like getting excited about Counter-Strike. So if you can just fit something in, then move along from it, that's always nice. We talk about sound effects too. That was a sound effect clip. Like to throw those in from time to time.
Yeah, I think in general we're pretty serious casters, right? The weird part about it is, as you've talked about before, casting is a very unnatural conversation. If you try to talk like you would in a conversation, you're gonna be stepping on each other's toes. It's gonna be kind of bumbly. There's gonna be like a lot of supportive words, like, yeah, I agree, I'm with you, like that kind of thing. You leave that out of a cast. You kind of try to keep it as concise as possible, get to the point, keep a certain atmosphere at all times. You talk like you're almost singing, and that's not something you do in a conversation. So a lot of aspects about Counter-Strike, or about casting in general, that isn't like a natural conversation. So someone who might be a natural conversationalist could have some attributes that could help them cast, but not necessarily be the complete package when it comes to being a good caster. The thing is, though, that the other challenge of being a caster is striking that balance between being very professional and knowing how to be serious, but then also like coming through with some personality, because otherwise it doesn't feel real. That person's talking, and those two people are talking. You kind of need to know that those guys are friends, and that they are comfortable, and that they're not just like doing a job, but then also just actually reacting just like everybody else does at home.
Yeah, good points. So I'm just gonna play this one out.
To think as well, it's not, some Deagle shots are just good crosshair placement.
The next round.
Those were sick little flicks, and Stewie 2K takes down Fallen to start the round.
Wait a second.
What did he
I want to
say?
know what that means.
Yeah. What'd you call me?
Say Chuchacho?
Fallen was critical.
Something, I don't know, that guy kind of like pops off on his own when because again, like, to pretext the game, Stewie and Fallen were battling op on A ramp forever, like almost every single round. Between the two of them, I think they had like in op duels, Fallen was besting him. So like there was a moment during this game where we were we had to criticize Stewie because he was giving away opening kills. But at the end of the game, he finally started to best it back, right? Like he survived this burner. Even though the game went on for another 2 OTs. So I think it's hilarious when Stewie finally gets that pick that there's some Brazilian guy that screams who knows what.
I mean, he is screaming like he knows something, like he's trying to warn us of all of something. You know what I mean? He's screaming at the absolute top of his lungs. It's like he ripped off the top half of his head and just started screaming out of his throat into the air, like no filter whatsoever. Can we just play? Can you just play the scream one more time?
Sure.
Okay.
Wait a second.
That drunk guy on the corner.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
lovable drunk guy on the corner.
I love that it's just as you said, like, wait a second, not because of him, but because of the play that was just unfolding as well. So it's just great timing.
Yeah.
We play with it a bit, and then I'm just gonna let the play-by-play roll, because I think that's what really shines in this clip.
I want to know what that means.
This was my sorry, I keep pausing. This was my, I would argue, favorite 30th round cast between the two of us.
Yeah. What'd you call me?
Fallen's out. Fallen was critical. They know this. He's been the tormentor at A. Stewie feels way better knowing that Fallen's dead. He's been the guy to just kill him over and over again after he's basically passed the torch to Taco, but now Taco's the one with the op as well. So it'll be round 2 here on the A ramp. This is interesting. I like that it ends here or potentially continues from here.
Timing.
Ooh, it's not been his friend.
Stewie has to keep this scope glued to the left side. I know he's cautious of a short shelf peek, but here's Taco. He's going to take a little bit of damage to the sandbags. There's a big clash set up here on ramp. Stewie's giving chase, and it is Liquid to come out on top of it all. KNG 1v3, nothing to lose. He is all in towards this A site.
They beat their biggest demon. They finally got up the A ramp. They get into the site, bomb down 3v1. KNG, you would think no way in hell.
Yeah, but this man is made of magic, and he's wielding his wand. Dodges that first flash. Smokes begin to fade. How in God's name will he unearth these 3 Ts from their post plant? Missing the first shot's not going to make his job any easier. And down he goes. Team Liquid forcing it to OT.
MIBO.
All right. I like that.
That was pretty good, yeah.
That was pretty good, right? There's a couple of moments if we just play it back. I'm gonna get to the timestamp, and I'm gonna try to draw attention on them, and then we can replay and try to isolate those moments, right? So whatever, the humor's out of the way from the last round. Yeah, that's just a good preface. So we know we're coming into the 30th round with like a little lightheartedness. We have some crowd interaction. It's just a good spot to be. But then the real cast actually starts when they start moving up ramp. You're doing a good bit of analysis once you've regained focus from the Brazilian cheer, and obviously the play starts right now. This is one of those moments where like it's clear because of the very obvious 3 versus 3 setup on ramp that we're going to get one of these like kill crescendos. Like there's going to be a lot of action and trading in a very short amount of time. So it's really about you getting as much of an analysis in before I take that from you. And in this clip, there's, I think, a bit of a tell. Like there's a kind of me tugging at you here when I repeat myself. I go timing, because I'm interjecting myself into your point, playing off of what you were just building up, but also signaling, like, in a way, timing for me to come in here. So you hand it off, and I create that hype for the 6-man gunfight. You know, you got guys jumping on boxes, you've got peaks coming out. So it's a nice, I would say, even though it's a crescendo of frags, it was a very clear pace to it because I knew where everybody was positioned. It was obvious that both teams were going to walk away with some number of kills. You didn't know how clear the rest of the round was going to be from it because it could have been a 2v2. There could have been a CT that slipped away from that initial gunfight. It's not the case. In fact, in the end, it's just left in a 1 versus 3. So we build up to that big gunfight, and then we have to repace ourselves for the final 1 versus 3 there with Mayern. And I think that what is so crucial here, right, is it's I would say like the ace moments is what I want to call them. It's when you are present between 2 pieces of play-by-play with full energy, with full ability of transitioning me from one peak to the next one without dropping the beat too low or without keeping it flat, because you don't want to be flat, right? So when we replay this clip, I want you guys to listen. You have me getting very excited on the ramp with the obvious play-by-play. I then have to tone it down because clearly there's going to be another phase of gunfight in that 1v3 attempt. Listen to the way Mohan comes in with full energy. He's not just picking it up at a low beat, but right kind of where I left off. And because of that, I'm clearly able to catch my breath, right? Like you don't hear any sharp intakes, no, which you'll hear sometimes in my casting when I've got to prolong, when I've got to stick to it. But you hear that when I restart, I'm grounded. You know, I've had a chance to calm down. I've had a chance to, because your heart starts beating, man, when you're yelling this loud, when you're getting this hype. So I come back very leveled, very grounded. And I think it's because of that I get off the line with, like, you know, he's made of magic and he's wielding his wand. The alliteration next to the smoke. How will he unearth these players in the 1v? It's like you hear me throwing out all of my gas in one hit because I realize he's screwed. But we don't know he was screwed until KNG is in the middle of the bomb site. So again, when I replay this back, you're listening to 2 things. Mohan's ability to segue me and then the way that I can come back in a very strong play-by-play because of it.
Wait a second. I want to know what that means.
Yeah.
It just hits different, man.
What'd you
That
call me?
scream.
Fallen's out. Fallen was critical. They know this. He's been the tormentor at A. Stewie feels way better knowing that Fallen's dead. He's been the guy to just kill him over and over again after he's basically passed the torch to Taco, but now Taco's the one with the op as well. So it'll be round 2 here on the A ramp. This is interesting. I like that it ends here or potentially continues from here.
Timing.
Ooh, it's not been his friend.
Stewie has to keep this scope glued to the left side. I know he's cautious of a short shelf peek, but here's Taco. He's going to take a little bit of damage to the sandbags. There's a big clash set up here on ramp. Stewie's giving chase, and it is Liquid to come out on top of it all. KNG 1v3, nothing to lose. He is all in towards this A site.
They beat their biggest demon. They finally got up the A ramp. They get into the site, bomb down 3v1. KNG, you would think no way in hell.
Yeah, but this man is made of magic, and he's wielding his wand. Dodges that first flash. Smokes begin to fade. How in God's name will he unearth these 3 Ts from their post plant? Missing the first shot's not going to make his job any easier. And down he goes. Team Liquid forcing it to OT.
MIBR.
There we have it, man. So again, at the end of that first play-by-play, you hear I'm out of breath. You hear the KNG now, and then yet after you speak, completely back to a normal speaking voice. So those are those ace moments that I think that
Yeah.
when you save me,
it feels like it was also, it felt like you kind of had the engine going at kind of at the right, you're on the right gear in that, especially in that gnarly moment at the end. You're able to maintain this like throughout that last part of the KNG, his final moments in that round.
Yeah,
and it's cool that the beginning of the round started off with, or not even the beginning of the round, like 20 seconds before that was like a funny moment that was somebody else from the crowd that we didn't ask for but welcome, and we have to go from there and then kind of bring it back, and you could change the mood so fast, even for us, for people at home. It can go from funny to serious all of a sudden, funny to crazy, Cold Zera jumping off 4K. How do you even feel? I'm a Liquid fan, but I'm watching this live. Like, you can experience so many of these emotions at once, and I think that's also something that you kind of want to find more of at all times. Just get as much emotion out of a game as possible. Cool. Should we move forward? Is there anything else you want to say?
man.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think it's a good time to hit up Bahrain.
Okay. So now I think I've just got this on a Google Doc. My desktop is full of windows right now. We've got a handoff here. So this was to talk specifically about handoffs. It's a round where Astralis, they take outside control. They wrap to heaven. They have a great split. They've got Twist that's in the site. No one's in rafters to stop. You guys know how hard that is when you're trying to defend a site without rafters control. Nafly's pushed into hut. He's like, I'm over it. I think you say he's in vent, but I was wrong. Sometimes you just screw it up looking at
Sometimes
X-ray.
you're just wrong, man. Yeah.
You're just wrong. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later in the third clip as well, because that happens. But here is the start to this round, and this is about the time that I'm juggling between when I need to give it to Connor and when is too early and when is too late. That's the balance I'm constantly trying to strike, so that Connor can do the play-by-play. And if you guys don't know, this is I'm the color caster. I add the analysis to the cast. Connor takes you through the action, and we try to keep that. We try to keep those roles relatively. We try to uphold like a traditional take on those roles, where he'll do most of the play-by-play, although I'll come in on some, and I'll try to do the analysis and fill those downtime periods so that he can recharge, or just come in with the perfect amount of time to build up the hype.
To this heaven hit.
This is so beautiful from Astralis.
They're going to start questioning this, but the timing could very well play against them.
Let me roll this back just a little bit, because this is a moment. You see them in heaven. You as viewers see that this is about to happen. you don't know when the split could come down. You know, Magic could just like peer over into the site at any time. A flash could get thrown from Glaive, who's outside. Dupree could run in. So I'm just going to run this back a little bit to see just how hard it is to kind of guesstimate when the action will start.
Is replaced by Dupree. Now Twists, Naf, they're all susceptible to this heaven hit.
This is so beautiful from Astralis.
They're going to start questioning this, but the timing could very well play against them. I mean, it wasn't long ago that Nitro was just in this position. Twist, though, now he watches it. They didn't act fast enough. A smoke will block off 2, but the majority of Astralis still on the ground floor outdoors.
Listen, they can throw that smoke.
So that smoke is a cue for me. Obviously, the smoke is just like, hey, you have time to talk right now. Like you're good to go. Before that, Connor was interjecting on himself, pausing between sentences, knowing that I could pick it up at any time. But without that smoke there, you know, the round could just start. So it's actually important that he keeps going just in case. Because if I start talking, then I have to pick up some of the action.
But Twist is doing it from just a subservient position, you know, standing underneath heaven. He's not comfortable at all. Naf is not helping him because he knows that Twist can't help him either.
And then I know I just need
This
to
is
start
him
ramping
by
up,
himself,
literally
realizing
as the smoke
they're
comes
going to
down.
have to make a low percentage play and hope it works.
Here comes a flurry of utility. Flashbangs dodge, Twist fires off, drops bomb, and there's a quick flank in from Nitro. He sees bodies on the floor, adds to the corpses. It is just device and he too cleared. Another failed attempt at an A hit. Liquid keeping it close.
Unbelievable rotation there from Nitro. The only thing that saves.
And that's the whole kind of situation there is when you're watching, I guess when you're watching the game, it might look like, you know, you're just talking and then somebody else talks, but I'm in my head. I mean, we're coming up with filler words to say in periods where we know we have to talk in order to maintain a level of energy. It's almost like that takes precedent over what we say. And then what makes us good in moments or bad in moments is if we can say good things in those filler moments, if that makes sense, just to add a little bit of flavor to fill the time.
Yeah, I think you can hear it even within myself in that, right? Like that once they're up inside of heaven, you hear me, again, using these filler words, not speaking in long sentences, because, again, that big question mark in that clip, I think, is just when the hell are they going to make the play? You know, that smoke grenade delays the whole thing that much longer. So that's kind of where we get more of a natural break. But right before that, I was making small breaks myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the smoke grenade is where clearly we knew, okay, we have at least X amount more time because they're not going to make that kind of a dumb play by just, you know, falling down into A site. So yeah, that was a really good way of kind of like you said, keeping the energy, keeping the momentum of the round while also waiting out a mandatory amount of time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes smoke grenades, like right before play is supposed to happen, can screw with the momentum because you've built up to a point. You can feel that Astralis are about to peak that A site.
Yeah, they want
but
to.
Then Twist delays it all. So it's like, well, oh shit, we've got to recompose. Like, and then I think it's about taking yourself away from standing on the cliff, being ready to jump into the play-by-play for the final fight of the round. You got to take that step back, double check that you both want to do this, and then walk back to the end of the cliff and finish out the round, you know?
And sometimes we use like physical hand signs, or we just go off of what we hear. I mean, and try to jump in that way. One thing that I think would be interesting would be to know how, because I feel like we're actually in that sense trying to match the energy of the TeamSpeak or the Discord or whatever, where, you know, if the players are about to set up for an execute, communication is about to peak as well. And when communication peaks, that's usually when the casting is probably at its loudest, and that's usually when the crowd is the most honed in and either roaring or intense. And I think it'd be cool to see an equalizer or a visualization of how loud it is in TeamSpeak, even if we don't hear the comms in the game. Kind of like we have the on fire meter for the rounds. You know, if you had something that indicated how loud or how much communication was going on when Astralis are about to jump in at this execute, and then how it drops off when the smoke comes in, and they start to use that for a tactical pause and just start to think about how to reapproach the site. But yeah, that's it for that clip. We can kind of just move into your next one unless there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think it's a good time to bounce back. I just got to get the timestamp first. So we jump ahead 7 rounds, right? We last left this game off on the 30th when overtime started. So we're just going to legitimately jump through the entire first OT. The first overtime was essentially more of what we had in regulation. The game was very structured. The players were still trying to vie for control over ramp using the op duels. But then we kind of get into this really wacky world in double overtime where I feel like everybody's kind of had enough. Most notably, in this case, it's Naf. Naf is the champion of double overtime. And both of the rounds that we're going to check out are going to have to do with him, as I said earlier, kind of cranking the dial. You know, we thought we had our fingers on the pulse, but then all of a sudden there's this huge spike out of nowhere. And that's just because Nafly is making ridiculous plays. So we find ourselves in round 37. This is where Naf gets a wild wall bang from the back of CT spawn through the box on A site and prevents the bomb plant. So this, I would say, like you said, we were going to try to, finish on some less positive notes, a little self-criticism. Well, this is one where I was so convinced by MIBR's call and game plan to sit outside the A site to the point that Liquid leave bomb site. And you hear my reaction as they leave. Like, I'm kind of laughing, scoffing off the round. And I say out loud, MIBR, this is how they're going to win this. Mm-hmm. Right when I say that, you see Liquid make the last second readjustment to come back to the bomb site. You see Nafly kind of get into that final chance to do something. And I make a second fallacy. Not only have I already at this point said MIBR are going to win this, but once I realize Naf's making a playback, I backpedal a little bit by saying, well, at least they'll have the plant, because I see there could be more action, which means I can't just write off the round. But even in my backpedaling, I didn't backpedal far enough, because obviously Nafly stops the bomb plant with this crazy wall bang that I never saw coming, that MIBR clearly didn't expect. And so there is no better example than a 4-second remaining total crank of the hype meter. And it's because he catches everybody off guard, the other team and the commentators to a certain degree. I'll play it out once and then I'll come back to the casting itself.
Anyone's been on fire, and that's because obviously this is in the second OT lead.
Well-timed smoke.
They
Very well-timed smoke.
Will they even care? Yeah, they're waiting. He's got too many opponents on the other side of the smoke. We know it's a Liege. I don't think that matters.
MIBR bleed this 30 seconds.
We have a new fighter joining in, and it looks like MIBR still want to try to bully their way into B.
Hey,
if this is an execute server, this 2v4, this would be standard practice. There'd still be a chance here for the CTs. Damn. But now they start to rethink themselves. The smoke comes back. Maybe their attention will be turned as well.
Big-brained. The waiting game is the way MIBR are going to slip away with this. I mean, at least they'll find the plant. A Molotov down on... Oh, he stopped it! Taco has no time! That's sickening!
I thought I was okay. I didn't really hear that sounding weird from you.
No. Again, I think that was a hype moment. I love that moment too. But I think that, being caught off guard by that is... You never want to write things off as a commentator, right? You never want to deflate a moment by saying oh, well, you can stop watching now, come back at the start of next round. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I was doing, but at least it was exciting because it was down to the 10 seconds. And yeah, I still think it's a good moment, but there's some fine tuning that could be done with this one. It's not bad per se.
It's an interesting concept that you're talking about, cranking it too hard, and sometimes moments will do that to you, especially the absolutely most unlikely moments, the crazy wall bang, the crazy no scope, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's great to be able to catch that and just react as quickly as possible, as loud as possible, just really try to absorb as much energy for that moment that would have normally been spaced out over a few seconds, and just again capture the feeling of the people that are watching at home, that are looking at that and are also taken aback, or also blown away. And it's something that you don't want to do all the time, something that you can avoid sometimes. But as long as it's something that only happens when it is as crazy as it appeared to everyone else, and not because you were, dozing off, which is something that you can do if we're unfocused, or just not paying attention, then that's not as good. But yeah, it's like you're basically turning the NOS on, right? You're turning the NOS on, but you can't do a daily drive with the NOS on. You've got to save that for the races. And I think that's what's really important and what makes those races special.
Yeah, I mirror all of that. And I think that this is, so to dissect this one further, I think that you do a particularly good job with this moment, because I'm in a speech pattern, right? I'm in the middle of talking, I'm closing out the round myself, and it would kind of, it requires, like I said, that just cranking moment, and you do that with a really good prolonged like your visceral reaction is what kind of allows me to stop talking for a second, end that speech pattern really, really quickly, and then come back in, and you'll hear my voice change. Obviously, just moments earlier, I'm talking about like, well, for sure they're still going to plant, and when I come back, well, obviously you get that there's no time, it's sickening. Like I'm coming in a different tone, and I've shifted my vocal cords to that tone, but I can only do that if I completely stop. To go from a normal sentence into that is where I'm going to have voice cracks. It's where it's going to sound really unnatural. So you segue it. And on top of that, you then allow me to shine with those types of those noises, right? Because you keep your speech minimal. So I really want to hammer this point home, because in my last clip, I think I am in your position where I am the secondary speaker, and I do less of a good job than you do here. So I'll play it back and listen to how Mohan right away cranks the energy, but doesn't crank the energy and take up space, doesn't crank the energy and prevent me from getting back into being the person who's speaking with the most words. He's not wordy. Oh is one word, drawn out and really excited. And then I believe all you say after that is you just count down the bomb. 4, 3, 2, while I have a chance to structure a couple of sentences in that, saying things like, it's sickening, they have no time. So we'll listen to it again.
Anyone's been on fire, and that's because obviously this is in the second OT Elise.
Well-timed smoke.
Very
well-timed smoke.
Will they even care? Yeah, they're waiting. He's got too many opponents on the other side of the smoke. We know it's a liege. I don't think that matters. Though, we have a new fighter joining in, and it looks like MIBR still want to try to bully their way into B. If this is an execute server, this 2v4, this would be standard practice. There'd still be a chance here for the CTs. Damn. But now they start to rethink themselves. The smoke comes back. Maybe their attention will be turned as well.
Big-brained. The waiting game is the way MIBR are going to slip away with this. I mean, at least they'll find the plant. A Molotov down on... Oh, he stopped it! 4, Taco has no time! That's sickening!
Oh, man. So good. The head and hands.
And then let's just, for the cherry on top, just silence after.
Yeah, right.
Right? That is a punch you in the face, sink in type moment. There's no way we can just bounce back from that with like, and there you have it. The score is now 8. You have to let that sink in, because everybody's kind of jaw dropped, right?
Who's analyzing that too, right? It's like,
yes.
Who's even thinking about that? It's just something that happened. The round is done. There's not really anything about that you can take back and watch over again in the demo and learn from. It's really just a moment that's crazy that makes Counter-Strike what it is, that you're going to get sometimes, not all the time. Just got to let it. You just got to let that feeling ride, because there's nothing you can learn from it, really. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I know we've been going back and forth, Mohan, but I think that it would be a good time for me to actually show my third clip, because I think it's since we're on this conversation of like handling it well and you being a good secondary in this moment, in the 39th round is when Nafly does another one of these ridiculous moves. Get it up to speed. So let's play this out a bit.
Is going on. He's gotten, I think, more and more audacious, more and more confident. And that's huge because he has to make those decisions alone.
And now, I mean, Team Liquid look scrapping together what they can for this. Stewie 2K is a glass cannon, MP9s, and lackluster nades on nearly all.
So again, we've got a moment where there's a bunch of players at the base of A ramp. Everybody's going to set up for this initial gunfight, and that's just been the entirety of this game. It's been these A ramp hits, and then what comes next. And what we've had were consistent efforts to retake the A bomb site in a post plant. Nafly rushes through a smoke grenade here in I think it's like a 2v3 or a 3v3 situation. It's essentially a moment where if you watch the radar, once the play starts unfolding again, he runs from the B bomb site all the way through CT spawn into the A site. He passes the two players who were waiting out a smoke grenade. So he gets in front of the guys who have been here for 20 seconds and just jumps through the smoke. Like, he doesn't let go of W from the B bomb site to the moment that he shuts it all down. And that, like the wallbang, is one of these situations where the intensity of the round is just cranked in a second. There's no real way to react to it eloquently. You just have to take it as it is, and you've just got to hope that, like, you know, our reactions as casters are fast enough. Yeah. I think that the setup for the play-by-play is really done well here. The toning, the pacing, like it's going back to the 30th round where it could have been the final round of the game. You don't want to be too hyped, you know, but at this point, remember that me and you have experienced the NAF wallbang. Like, we're at like a 9 out of 10 here, you know, double overtime. It's a LAN game. We've got a crowd around us. So you don't want to get too crazy excited, but so many ridiculous things have happened that we're hitting our peak. You know, and we know that the game is going to end now. So the play-by-play and the overall tone and excitement is still in a really good place. I was about to pass it back to you because we had watched the rotate come over. There's a smoke wall up. It's one of those moments where, like, Mohan can say something before we get that second initiation of gunplay. But that's not what happens. Obviously, NAF just balls to the walls again. And balls have been the name of the game, bro. There's another mention here, just like the Bahrain clip. But he catches me off guard. He catches MIBR off guard. And when the reaction is good initially, I think this is when the mistake makes. All right. So if there's a clip to criticize, I think this is the one here. All right. Last moment with Nafly's wallbang, I was in a speech position. I was the one putting together sentences. You were just setting me up and being right there with me at the 10 on 10. This is one of those moments where instead of keeping it simple and me just going, oh, or 3, 2, 1, like you did, I keep trying to interject with play-by-play. So we kind of interrupt each other 2 or 3 times here. Like, because we're not sure who's going to take the lead on the conversation. I think in hindsight, watching this back, and obviously we're always the most critical of ourselves, but in watching it back, I wish I had just stopped. I wish I had just stopped speaking, because I think that there's a tell here, and it's a tell that in the moment I didn't pick up on. Again, with the wallbang, you're not giving me a tell that you want to speak more. You're doing a very good job of being in a supportive casting role and letting me, you know, keep my sentences. Whereas in this situation, you are clearly trying to speak. You are clearly trying to do like a comedic bit. And instead of just giving off the reins entirely, I keep trying to like conclude the round with the score or whatever it is. So in hindsight, I wish I had just spoken less and let you get everything out, because I find you're hilarious in this moment. Like, these are one of those classic Launders is broken. Launders has had enough. It's really, really good. So I just, again, we'll watch it one time. My criticism of myself, I wish I had spoke less.
But Elige isn't going to shy away from the forefront of this A site. Naf picks up a kill crucially over towards B, but that's just one player, the only player at the base of B site. Mayern's been there alone, round and round again. Stewie's just so exposed, and he never thought of turning attention. Nitro caught with nades, mistakes being made by Liquid, giving a chance at MIBR to get back into this, but it is still 3v3. Everybody's in the same position now!
Oh my God, what?
He just runs right through! And Team Liquid!
Stop, come on, man, what the hell?
They'll
What
take
is that?
2 on the CT side, 20-19.
We have a job to do. We're trying to figure out what's going on, and this crazy shit keeps happening.
Oh, man. Balls to the walls. Balls to the chin. Nap.
We're just, I remember just being, yeah, like this game had so many just absurd moments. I just remember just being like completely wound up. I was just like,
yeah,
you couldn't make a movie crazier, right? Like you couldn't, you couldn't make it, you couldn't add another Deus Ex Machina moment that could take it one step further into absurdity. Like this was just the final straw. I just was trying to, again, like that total cranked up thing, I was just trying to let it ride. And I think I think if I did it again, I probably wouldn't have said that much. Like I could have stopped it, and it was hard to figure out when I was going to stop talking because I take sharp pauses. But when I sometimes in those moments, like, and then people always ask like, how come you yell so much when there, and there's different reasons. Sometimes the yelling is just because there's what I'm putting above everything else is latching on to a moment as soon as possible and as viscerally as possible, because a lot of the great commentary that I've listened to, just that adds something that it doesn't make the commentator look as good, but it just feels so satisfying to have someone get caught off guard. And then sometimes that means that I can almost fish for those moments a little bit too hard and shouldn't yell as much as I do. The commentators that I've listened to that do that the most are the Korean commentators from StarCraft, but the chemistry that they have is such that they yell over each other almost perpetually through big team fight moments while they're talking. Those moments we've seen, you know, you're watching the Captain Flowers clip from League of Legends and how good that commentary was. That there's not like, when they're speaking Korean and I hear these guys yelling, I don't know what they're saying, but I still am excited about it. And that's why I've always tried to bring that into my casting as the thing that I want to bring into my casting. But I think sometimes it doesn't work. It's just when finding that balance is what is the kind of ongoing, is the ongoing challenge.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And and I think that's again, I think this one, I know that you include this in casting all the time, right? Like the Mohan yelps, and I dig them, right? Like I know you're gonna do it, so it doesn't catch me by surprise. I think what caught me by surprise was the play in the moment, and then like again these kinds of jarring. These jarring tempos that are coming out of nowhere with Nafly, like even, you know, there's a lot of the same positives that happened with the wallbang play are here again. Naf runs through, cranked it. I think the tones, the sounds, it sounds really good. That just insanity sound, right? When I'm yelling out his Nafly, he just runs through smoke, and like this is after it happens. So again, like I'm keeping the hype at a peak, even though the play is over. The whole round is over. But it's because that moment deserves an extended amount of excitement. I think you have a clear tell that you want me to stop because you literally yell out to Nafly, stop it. Like, and that would have been such a good way, again, if you wanted to fine tune and make this like a perfect moment of casting. I think that when you yell out, stop and start your bit is when I should have just stopped talking entirely, because then I'm listening to what I added, and all I added was like the fact that they are in a 2-round lead, which we have plenty of time to say 30 seconds later when the next buy comes to a close. So it's just about like, you know, again, I'm trying to get out information when we should in that moment just kind of be basking in the craziness of what's just unfolded. In the wallbang round, we do that by just letting it stop. Like Nafly gets his wallbang, we both count down the bomb plant together, so we have a really nice like bit of synchronized commentary. and then a silence, a pause, a break. I should have taken a break right after I say, Nap just runs through smoke, because you are in this bit, this bit phase that I think, again, is really good here. Like, I know you do it, and I think it fits. Obviously, we're the same philosophy. But I just, if there's any jarringness to it this time particularly, I think it is because I'm still trying to speak. If we listen to it back, I think like it's way easier to be convinced of it had there not been that little bit of back and forth at the start of it, because like you said, with the Korean commentators who kind of thrive in that nature of casting, they're both doing it, and they're both doing it over each other and together. So at least they're synchronized in that tempo. Whereas, I'm trying to almost bring down the play by mentioning the score while you're losing your fucking mind. So it's one of those moments where I think, like, again, should have just left off the pedal, but we'll listen to it. And for clarity's sake too, I think that right beforehand, the cast was going super good. We've had really good play-by-play this whole time. I get this really cool alliteration in the round where it's like, Nitro's caught with nades, mistakes are being made. Like, it's just a good sound right before it all comes to an end.
What's going on? He's gotten, I think, more and more audacious, more and more confident. And that's huge because he has to make those decisions alone.
And now, Team Liquid look scrapping together what they can for this. Stewie 2K is a glass cannon, MP9s, and lackluster nades on nearly all. But Elige isn't going to shy away from the forefront of this A site. Naf picks up a kill crucially over towards B, but that's just one player, the only player at the base of B site. Mayern's been there alone, round and round again. Stewie's just so exposed, and he never thought of turning attention. Nitro caught with nades, mistakes being made by Liquid, giving a chance at MIBR to get back into this, but it is still 3v3. Everybody's in the same position now!
Oh my God, what?
He just runs right through! And Team Liquid!
Stop, come on, man, what the hell?
They'll
What
take
is that?
2 on the CT side, 20-19.
We have a job to do. We're trying to figure out what's going on, and this crazy shit keeps happening.
Oh, man.
See, that moment is at its best when I just start laughing. When I just
fun,
give up on talking, man. Yeah.
Honestly, like, I think with you, like, even with you coming in, it's almost even better. But yeah, I think I want to look at chat for a second, because actually a lot of stuff here and questions and comments on casting. It was just, yeah, I was really trying to, like, my hardest just like I think in an ideal world I would have said more in less time and had less breaks, and then it would have been there would have been no way for you to jump in the first place, and then I wouldn't have to have stepped on your toes and whatever. So that would have been ideal. But Mr. Kakazi says that he says that he dislikes when casters overreact on some plays, and it's your pet peeve. And I think so do I. And I think that even when I hear other casters, it's kind of it's kind of if I believe that they really are reacting at the level that they feel in that moment. I think that's the hard part for people, where I think it's one thing that doesn't translate so well is that when we're there in a studio with fans beside us, and we've been casting the whole game, and we are coming in off of a coffee and a whole day of thinking about casting, and then getting into that insane moment, like, we are way more excited than people that are watching, honestly. To a certain level, like, we're even more excited because we've just been, like, trying to get to this peak level of energy so we can catch a moment. And sometimes when it's sold too hard, it doesn't sound real, and it's important to sound real even if it is real. It's more perception is reality, and I think that's where that comment makes a lot of sense. With what kind of reactions come out, I think what's important for me in the future is to try to come up with more things of substance to say in those moments, as opposed to just screaming or something super simple or easy if I'm going to talk. And I think that's just something you work on. I mean, that's something we talk about, that we work on.
Yeah.
I'll still continue to get caught off guard in certain moments. I'll still be myself. I'll still be my excited self. But yeah, in terms of improving as a commentator, what's a good commentator? It's kind of like the best version of the people who are reacting, right? It's relatable, but it's also somebody who could come up with something really cool or creative to say, something funny, something extremely hyped but sounds still good. All these things, and those clutch moments, sometimes you feel them, sometimes you don't. But yeah, that's something that I do think about. But I think a lot of the times casters are actually as excited as they are when they react or overreact. I don't know if anybody who casts really comes in and is like, I'm going to make this as a gaming more exciting than it should be. I think they just genuinely want it. They want it so bad that they get themselves excited, and that's why it sounds fake.
Yeah.
And then I think there was just one more thing that I was reading. Do you think it's, maybe you can answer this one too. Do you think it's lazy? Era 2E says, do you think it's lazy casting when there's a boring round and the casters just have to small talk instead of talking about the round? And for this, I just want a quick comment. I just think that there is a job. I think Monty's talked about this too, where he said his fans, when Doe and Monty were casting like Overwatch, for example, his fans want him to talk small talk just as much as they want the serious commentary. And we can only be additives to the game's excitement. So if a game is amazing, then the casting, if it's subpar casting, will sound decent. I mean, it could sound bad, but it gives us a leg up to have an exciting game. If a game moves really slow, Avangard versus Old Navi, if that was somehow possible, and you're going to the very last moment of every single round and it's defaults every time, it's really hard to cast those games. I mean, there's no way around it. And if you were to have great commentators on that, there's not much they can do. And in fact, if they try to add too much excitement, that's when it especially sounds fake, and the rounds just feel much longer and the whole game is more difficult. And what's important there is to bring up a lot of small talk in the off time, to have discussions that go off on tangents, to fill time. And in those boring rounds, it becomes more of our job to keep it interesting despite the game, as opposed to make the game interesting.
Yeah. Yep, that's the big one. Is like, it's the dull games that I think people will, if anybody has that complaint that they find there's too much like small talk, or if I would even say like if a commentator is interjecting themselves, putting their life experience or a story about them, what happened the day before, etc. If that's ever happening, it's probably because it's a dull game. I'm not going to try to talk about something funny that happened between the two of us when I've got a good game of Counter-Strike at hand. And when it comes to small talk, I think that this is why it's one of those like very subjective situations, because a lot of conversations and the interests around subjects is entirely subjective. I don't watch anime. So if I hear a commentator talking about anime in a super boring eco round where 5 Ts are still in spawn just buying time, then if I'm a viewer who's not interested in that subject, yeah, it becomes kind of more dull. Like you start realizing that you don't give a shit what he's talking about. So why is he talking about this now? But you have to remember that there are people out there that have that similar interest. And once you have the similar interest to somebody who is speaking in that moment, it's kind of cool. Like, I always love hearing when commentators talk about, other games they play. I play a lot of video games. So I like to know their theory and their appreciation for different types of games. If you listen to DDK talk about like his puzzle platformers, for example, Celeste and whatnot, I love hearing him geek out about that. And I think that's why, as a commentator, when you do decide to go with small talk, or if you kind of interject a subject that is not Counter-Strike related, what you want to do is also make that as relatable as possible. We want to relate to you guys, the viewers. That's why we're talking to you about our personal life or our opinions or our pastimes or whatever it may be. It's because I'm just trying to connect. I'm trying to relate. That's
Also,
why
it could be boring as hell for us too, and keep us alive. Like, it might just be fun to talk about something else.
We've had that talk where it's like, if we do want to discuss things, like, we try to avoid specific movies, but we'll do things like funny stories, or what we've had to eat, or like things that everybody can relate to in one way or another are always the best subjects.
So this is a good segue into talking. Going off on a tangent, this one's still Counter-Strike related. So this is something about casters becoming negative, and I want to bring this in about casters versus the desk, and how casting actually needs to be a bit more positive than the desk. The desk can come through as the second face to the analysis equation, and really, even though I'm the color commentator and I try to bring up stuff that may be negative, how that some of this stuff needs to be reserved for the desk. So here, Astralis throw cross smokes outside, or sorry, Liquid throw cross smokes outside. They run across their smokes, and then they get spammed down. And this is something I got upset about, because normally, if you're going to throw these smokes, whether you use them or not, it's important to not run when you don't need to, so that they can't tell if you've crossed. If you run and someone's in, like, Glaive is right here, or someone's in Big Garage, they can just give you that information. And this is where the game starts to slip away from Liquid. And I harp on this into the next round, up into the casting. And that's something that I swear I don't do this very often anymore, but it still happens. And that's probably kind of the worst offender. Connor saves me when we get into the casting and catches it and then turns it into play-by-play again. But I just want to show what an example is of talking too long, because we can go off on tangents, but that just has to stop when the game gets good again. And so even if it's a boring round, we can talk about whatever we want. As soon as the game gets good again, I think the only time we really cross the line is when we keep talking.
It's spam damage. Oh, that hurts. A 5 versus 3, and they haven't even seen the map. Also cut down. So be it. They've gotten their feet down secret. They're closer to this B site. Maybe a desperation plant because they still have the timing. No rotation fast enough to stop them, but Twists, he tries to take a fight before the bomb's gone down. Full flash on Nitro. Easy pickings. 5 survive for Astralis.
A little bit of a weak go at it there. Like, yes, it was 2 amazing shots that got them through the smoke device. I think even Wallbang Secret again to maybe get that second kill. Crazy stuff, but they had the audibles. There were so many footsteps. Why, with that much time left over in the 5v5 when you just won the last round and have a lot of utility, why is it that you're running to cross secret? You're never going to see Astralis run to cross secret. You don't necessarily have to compare yourselves to them, but they are playing the best nuke right now. You're never, ever going to see Astralis run across their smokes, because it means that when it comes time to fake or use the smokes.
And like right here, I'm taking too long to explain it, and I'm not explaining it well enough. So then I end up tacking on parts of a sentence that use redundant language, that are just repackaging the same thing, trying to get to a new part of the point, and then that just bleeds the time off the clock. We're already out of freeze time. I'm still talking about this thing.
That those are going to be less impactful when you know that a team could be potentially making noise behind them. There was time for them to walk. There was lots of time on the clock in general.
And there's this sunk cost where, as a commentator, you realize, like, if you say something stupid, then everyone hears that thing. If you correct yourself, you're stealing people's valuable time, and they don't care that much. But if you don't correct yourself, then people think you don't know what you're talking about. And so ideally, you just don't say the thing you didn't mean to say, right? You just don't say it wrong. But that doesn't always happen. And then you have a little bit of time to be like, this is what I meant, if that's what you want to say. But you've got to keep everything as succinct as possible. And here, we're moving into the execute. I'm still going on about this.
There's lots of health, lots of utility, and it's the audibles that got them killed, and that just bleeds over into more momentum here as Astralis put together another 2 free, easy opening kills.
So then I try to catch myself, because I realize, like, shit, they fucking executed. So then I go ahead and start saying, like, I round out my sentence, convert it into a sentence to help Connor come in, and then Connor helps me out with this very nicely phrased sentence.
Dude, you're not even given a chance to finish your point before Liquid feed frags to Astralis. Just straight out the gate, casual.
But of course, Connor's thinking, you fucking mong. What do you do?
Stack up, and Zipex with another crisp headshot. It's not even like Team Liquid are contesting these last couple of rounds.
Yeah. So again, I just being more succinct would have been better, but it's just like I could have had a negative point to say, but I think in general, right? Like, even if I don't talk too long there, the mood of the cast is important to be generally positive even in a weaker game, because it's not that, because most people are not watching every moment and listening to everything and focusing on every detail. Most people are watching for the entertainment product and just trying to have something exciting to see. And it's not that we want to pretend to be so stupid that we don't see what's wrong. And in fact, I want to be the voice of the people that do have a critical eye. Just don't want to overplay that, because I think for the cast, positivity is actually quite important. And on the desk, they can go all out.
Yep, that's the most important one, I think. And it's the casting staying positive that's huge. Like you said, like, it's important to point out faults in rounds and mistakes, because that clearly cost them. Running through that smoke clearly cost them. You have to repeat that. But at the same time, if you don't want to dig into it with like too negative of a sentiment, because personally, this is a personal problem. When you hear just like a commentator who's just constantly picking apart what you're watching, it almost starts to degrade it. It degrades the level of gameplay in one's mind, because you start to reflect. It's like, well, man, if they're making so many mistakes, it's because they must be bad, right? But it's like, no, the mistakes that are being made are the reason they're losing rounds, but they're losing rounds at the highest level of competitive Counter-Strike. So you can always pick out a reason why something happens, but you shouldn't always paint that reason as a negative. Sometimes it's just the result of a situation. If there was nobody close to that smoke grenade and they run through it, it's not an issue. So it's not a mistake per se. Like, it's not something that's inherently negative. It's just a negative moment in the previous round that you have to touch on.
Can you get something for me?
Yeah, sure.
Do you remember the Brokey handoff clip?
Yes.
Yes, can you grab that? Okay, so that's the Cathartic said favorite series you guys have ever casted. And this is something from Blast Spring series, where this is where we felt like was the round that showed us where our casting wants to go all the time. It was a round where I interject with something, but it's not just like a scream. It's like I say a few words and it sounds good, and then Connor plays off of that. And this is to me, and after I realized, when Connor showed it to us, I think James Banks sent it to you and said,
yeah, James Banks sent it to me.
Yeah, so, and then I was like, wow, this does sound good. And I was like, I just kind of let it ride, but that's the kind of thing I want to do more of. So I want to show you that clip, Cathartic, and you guys can see where we ideally want our casting to go, and that's something that we feel like is a good representation of like our ideal cast, our ideal play-by-play / handoff moments.
It's a Twitter link. Can I send it to you by Twitter DM?
Twitter DM, yeah. And the other question I think I asked a couple of times here was, do you really enjoy while presenting exciting games, or do you just pretend that you're enjoying? And I'd say that, like, as a commentator or as anyone, like, it's like, as a player, it's not your job to have fun playing. It's your job to be a good player. And so for us, no matter what, our job is to bring a good cast. So in terms of enjoyment, that comes where it comes. Like, it's hard to say. Sometimes it's the moments, again, we're like additive to the game. If we see something fun that happens, or we just are riffing really well and the jokes make sense, or we're not thinking about how we're messing up because we're fumbling, or we're just having a good cast, then it's more fun. And sometimes it's not as fun, but you still got to bring the A game. So for us, it's like, I think the enjoyment, and you might be different than me, but the enjoyment is second, obviously, to the job. But a lot of the times, I mean, like right now, I wish I was casting again. Like, I really want. Yeah, we love casting. Obviously, I just keep thinking about it, and especially doing stuff like this, you just think about all the stuff that you want to improve, and you're just like, man, I wish I just had the chance to cast again. And so, yeah, in general, we definitely enjoy casting. We really like it, and we talk about it a lot. I mean, this is just something we do. Like, this stream is something we do in our off time at events. So here is a clip that I would say is like an ideal moment from us as casters, and something that when we looked at it after and James Banks sent it to Scrawny, I was like, damn, we should actually
Before you play it, I think that there's another example of this that, like, we already touched on it today, and I think that would be my first clip from the MIBR Liquid game, where there's that big fight on the ramp, and then when Mayern's rotating from the B site, I throw it to you, you interject. Like, we talked about letting me reset. And in that case, you did it with, like, I would say 6 seconds of speaking. this clip is so good in my mind because you let me reset with literally 3 words. Like you're able to condense your interjection into the smallest amount of time, and you're accomplishing so much in just saying those 3 words. Hit it.
It's going to prevail for a bit, but Brokey hits the shot and can very well bring this back.
Lightning fast from Brokey.
Another perhaps, Elish pinned down. There's the round for FaZe.
7
in
fans
a
are
row.
on their feet.
No, that's it, basically. It's just lightning fast from Brokey, and then Connor says perhaps, and it's like the perfect ride, right? And it's like one person's talking almost, which is just more personality. Which is
It's going to
great.
prevail for a bit, but Brokey
It lets me catch my breath. It lets me reset, and that I think
fast from
in
Brokey.
Another
specific is the
perhaps,
first
Elish
time where like we
down.
have
There's the round
rhythm
for
and rhyme
Mhm.
between me speaking, you speaking, and me speaking. There's 3 sounds, 2 of which are mine on the beginning and end, and then yours with lightning fast, the perhaps. Like it's just smooth, man.
Yeah. So
And
that's
again,
it.
all in a really, really tiny moment.
So that's what I'm going to try to kind of bring in more, as opposed to just screaming in reactions, because I really want that. What I was trying to go for is I want like those crazy moments to just be packed full of words, but to be perfectly spaced out, so we're not stepping over on each other's toes. And I can throw in the woos at the end too, as well, as long as they're complimentary and not something I'm like founding my contribution on, not something that's just like the cornerstone of the play for me. I want what I say to be also, you know, a set of creative words, not just a bit like a yell. So what was the clip that you had? Do you have it, or?
Yeah. Go back to the sync video with MIBR Liquid.
Oh, okay, cool.
I've got it
Wait a
timed up. So
second.
this is again the fans screaming.
It's the same clip.
Yeah, it's the same clip where it's just you know, now that we've just shown you guys what it sounds like in 6 seconds, here's again what it sounds like in a more drawn out time.
I want to know what that means.
Yeah. What'd you call me?
Underlay.
Fallen's out. Fallen was critical. They know this. He's been the tormentor at A. Stewie feels way better knowing that Fallen's dead. He's been the guy to just kill him over and over again after he's basically passed the torch to Taco, but now Taco's the one with the op as well.
I think I had too much water in my
So
mouth.
it'll be round 2 here on the A
Actually,
ramp.
towards the top.
This is interesting. I like that it ends here or potentially continue.
I like also to pause this. It's this is one of those sometimes I want to speak and maybe Mohan's not done, but I want to speak. So I just, in this case, I use timing, and it's not interrupting you, but it's an interjection that very clearly, you know, I've put my hand out to take the play.
Yeah.
And you receive it super well, because I think that's something
Yeah,
that
I can
also
hear it. It's kind of
is
like you
improvement.
got to hear it and not get distracted, because you can't sometimes stop where you are, but you just realize that like that is the cue, and then you
Continue
know
from
you
here.
let it off before the play starts again.
From here.
Timing.
Ooh, it's not been his friend.
Stewie has to keep this scope glued to the left side. I know he's cautious of a short shelf peek, but here's Taco. He's going to take a little bit of damage through the sandbags. There's a big clash set up here on ramp. Stewie's giving chase, and it is Liquid to come out on top of it all. KNG 1v3, nothing to lose. He is all in towards this A site.
They beat their biggest demon. They finally got up the A ramp. They get into the site, bomb down 3v1. KNG, you would think no way in hell.
So that right there is clearly like you very
Bigger
quickly
version.
summarize. You very quickly summarize what has just happened. You do it in an exciting way. You contextualize it with what has happened through regulation by saying they beaten their biggest like beast or whatever it is. You know, the biggest issue was ramp. They've done it this time. So we've drawn back to the 30 rounds that we've seen. It's happened. It's happening right now. And then you even make a "there's no way in hell" reference, which in my head is why later on I say God's name, because you know, just some religious terminology tied in with, again, like if you heard when I was coming up ramp right before I pass off to like, oh, it's KNG 1v3, again, you hear these sharp intakes of air, which this is getting real meticulous, but as I hate hearing that when I listen to a play-by-play, those right before because I know that I'm going to have to use that breath to get through the next X amount of time. So when I press play again, what you guys will hear is I come back and there's no, or at least there's definitely less of a lack of air in my lungs. But because I'm full winded now, right? Because I have all of that air to speak with, you can hear different techniques that I'm able to use. And that is the speed of my speaking turns up like crazy once I realize KNG is pinned behind the box, the short smoke fades. So I know he's in a crossfire. I know it's 1v3. I know he's going to lose. So I also know, therefore, that I can speak a bunch. I can say a bunch of like words in one quick sentence, and in my opinion, that sounds good. But that's only made possible because you came in and let me catch my breath. So I'll play that.
Oh, I think I had the sync cast closed actually.
Ow, man. Is it?
Yes, I was gonna go
okay.
to the Discord to.
That's
sorry. Not really sorry, but a little bit. What is this show called? Making the Cast. Oh, okay. So I was just going to turn this to questions. Do you want to play the... maybe I can get the link again.
No, it's cool, man. We already played it a bunch.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the lead on this question?
Sure, let's do it.
What
Question time.
What teams do you have? What teams do you have the most fun casting? What teams do you have the most fun casting? That's from Viraj Shindi.
I have the most fun casting teams that make wild plays. So I think like just because they're fresh on my mind, Liquid, right? Like I think that they have players that once they hit a certain point of a match, they just stop playing that structured CS and just try to go for these giant god plays. Like that's what Nafly did in this particular MIBR matchup. And I like casting teams that catch you off guard, because I watch a lot of Counter-Strike. It's our job to watch and talk about the Counter-Strike. So while you're speaking, not only am I listening to what you're saying, but I'm still scouring the radar. I'm still checking the economy. I'm double checking who has what nades, so that if I get into a last minute situation, I'm already aware of, okay, there's 2 flashbangs left in play, or there's no flashbangs, or there isn't a kit, like whatever it is. And so I'm trying to keep tabs on so many different things that I'm good at it. I'm good at not getting caught off guard. So when it does happen, that's really exciting for me, and that's really enjoyable, because it means that I got to step my game up, man. I've got to be even more on my toes. So any team that makes really explosive, like sudden 1-second decisions, I love those guys. And that's why I think Liquid tops that list.
For me, it's like, as long as it's like, honestly, opens have gotten, like DreamHack opens have gotten a lot better, but as long as it's like near tier 1 or tier 1, because like getting mad about something that happens in the tier 1 is a bit more seldom, because that is the like objectively best Counter-Strike that you can watch. When you go down in levels, sometimes it can be really frustrating, especially for me, because I'm so spoiled with the amount of good Counter-Strike that I get to cast. And I remember a time me and Connor used to cast like all the lower level leagues online at home and just watch whoever, like MDL style teams or level teams. And like that would be the level we watched, so we'd have an appreciation for those. But I guarantee you, if we go back and cast those games now, we're going to get mad at a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have gotten mad at before in terms of the plays. So, fast or slow, as long as the teams are moving the round along in some way, which they should be at the tier 1. For me, it's just like, as long as it's like the tier 1 teams, I think it's a big deal. Yeah.
It's a privilege to get to cast this level of CS sometimes, because I think like you mentioned like going back to the lesser talented online leagues. When I first started getting to go to the tier 1 events and cast the best teams in Counter-Strike, like you change what is your average viewing experience. And like I remember returning to Mountain Dew League one time and having to watch Flipside Tactics take 1.5 minutes every single round to set up and execute, and then throw smokes and try to plant in the last 20 seconds, versus teams who just couldn't even stack up individually at that time. Like Electronic was on Flipside. So, I mean, they would wait for the final moments, go into the execute, and then just rip their heads off anyways, not even needing a bomb plant. So you get into this pace where it's like, it's so much less interesting. because your standard is changing. And then also, you have to remember that like when we're casting the best events, I'm not sitting right here. It is way different commentating a game on the same screen that I play games on, in the same chair that I play games on, as opposed to walking into, you know, Blast Premier's awesome movie studio set with crowds around us on both sides, awesome light shows, fogged glass, teams literally left and right 15 feet from us. Like, you know, this is the casting experience from home, looking into a webcam, trying to sit up straight. Like it's not the same world. So yeah, I mirror your sentiment, Mo, when you say that, like, anytime it's tier 1 CS, because odds are it means we're also at a LAN event, and we've also, you know, had breakfast together, we've rode the same shuttle to the studio. Like, it's just a different energy in life, let alone the cast itself.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot more. We've got a lot of online stuff coming up. So obviously, we're just gonna show people what LAN can feel like online, because I think some of the stuff that I've watched from the online shows out there. First of all, it's great that there's just more viewership and stuff like that. It's awesome. Everyone's kind of in their seats, whether they like it or not. The casting hasn't been like great. I feel like some of these big, like, I've watched some Dota events in specific, and like some of the casting I feel like is a bit lax compared to what the circumstances are. Like, it's like the, you know, Dota like LA Major or other bigger events, and the seriousness and stuff could still be there. Like, if we're going to cast online games, I'm going to emulate what it feels like to be on LAN, because I can just bring myself there. I've been there before, and the teams are still the same. And in fact, Counter-Strike might be even stronger amongst the tier 1 versus the tier 1. So, right. Yeah. But yeah.
I think what you just said there, like, now that you've been there, you can replicate it. I think that's the hugest point. I don't think I would have ever been able to cast online CS, you know, in that way, in that energy, in that flow state, the same way I could now, because I know what it takes. You know, you got to get up right, you got to eat proper, you got to get the blood flowing, you got to move around. You can't just roll out of bed and cast from home. Like, it's not going to cut it. You got to treat it like you're at a LAN. I think, you know, it's putting yourself in that mind frame that you just mentioned that enables us and will enable us to cast that way.
Cool. That was it. I mean, we answered all the questions. So I think this might be a good place to end. I thought that was interesting. If you guys have feedback, hit us up, slide in the DMs, tweet us, use the hashtag BlastPremiere, follow BlastPremiere on Twitter, follow the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate everybody who's been watching in chat. Nubij, Naman Asitani, Fried Bun, eTurk GG, BlastPremiere, and I know there's a couple more. I'm just going to go ahead and name them all since a little tight community going on here. Monkey Lord 06, One Accept, Jebby, Soul Crusher, hi there. Homie. Soul Crusher. Mags Frisch, Mary, Jamsy. Everyone?
Kaku Kimpu.
All right. Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. Take care. Oops. I forgot to add music to the other scene.